Welcome to the To Be the Church podcast, where we explore what it truly means to be the church in today's culture. It's another Friday, and right before we hit record here, Andrew, you did some sort of accent that and you said something from a movie, and then you asked like, "Hey, who knows what that's from?" And we all stared at you,
everybody,
with blank stares, and it turned out to be from The Last of the Mohicans, which came out. What are you laughing for?
Just this guy.
These are the worst.
In 1992.
Like, have you guys seen Gladiator? Have you seen Braveheart?
My mom didn't let me watch Gladiator.
You seen The Patriot?
Of course.
All right. Last of the Mohicans is in that territory, man.
It's a little older, though.
Like 2 years. Braveheart was 95, right?
I don't know.
Google could tell us.
I don't know what I'm doing here. It's like,
yeah. What have been those moments, though, where you're like, oh, I realize how old I am right now? Like
40?
I know you're old. But
just now when you said that?
Yeah. I mean, for me, there was a time in our green room where we had, we were talking about where we were on 9/11. And there were two band members, like Sunday morning band members.
Max was like in the womb.
He was in the nursing mom's room. Give him some credit. Nursing mom's room.
Wait. He was. Okay. Yeah. He was like 2.
How old are you, Max? I was 5. He was 5. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but like, we had band members like that are like adults, band members that were like not, that they were like, I don't know, I was like a month old and stuff like that.
I like that you did air quotes around adults.
Yeah. Legally adults. Sorry, Josh. Sorry, Anna. But shout out. But yeah, I don't know. There's been a few of those moments. I'm helping coach my son's t-ball team. So it's 4-year-olds.
The Royals, right?
No, he just wore a Royals jersey to practice. Because, I mean, it was practice and he had he had, I don't know.
They're like the White Sox, and he wears a Royals uniform.
We're the gray team. We don't have like our team name. I don't know. But like one of the moms was like, "This is so much fun! Like the first organized sports for the classes of 2037 or something like that." I was like, "What?" Jeez. All right. But okay. So we have a question that came in today, and this is an interesting one because this is about kind of how maybe some of our thoughts concerning online or streaming ministry have shifted. Since COVID hit. So, I mean, background for anyone who's been living in a hole, we've had a live stream here at NGC.
Which is everyone the last year.
Yeah, that's true. Background for everyone. We've had a live stream since 2015, and it's just been kind of a look into our Sunday gatherings. People can watch from home. People can watch when they're out of town. And just before COVID hit, or at some point before COVID hit, we had a conversation on here about like Andrew, I think you made the comment about if you could potentially putting that genie back in the bottle.
Oh yeah, the live stream genie.
Yeah, the live stream genie. And then so COVID hits, 16, 15 weeks, whatever it is, we're online only. And we're kind of in a spot where we were like set up for this. We're ready to do it. So it was a little less work for us. I mean, we actually helped out a lot of churches who had no streaming or video capability before this. We've been working with them throughout this whole thing. And then now here we are on the other end of it. And we're in the midst of the gospel proclaimed to be heard, which is this project where we're wanting to put some money on. So, Brian, why don't you read us today's question with that background in mind?
Hey, yeah. So the question is, COVID has been interesting for our church and the church overall. On the podcast right before we went into lockdown, Andrew talked about how if he could do it over again, NGC wouldn't have the live stream. Today, as we're making upgrades, I'd love to hear some of the stories and reasoning behind Andrew changing his mind.
Oh, Andrew. That guy. Crazy guy. Now, I need the tape. I need to roll that tape and find out, I remember saying if I could put the genie back in the bottle, I wonder if I did. But did I definitively say like I would totally not do it or what? I don't remember coming down that hard on that.
What I remember is I remember having follow-up conversations with members of our media team who felt like you were that hard on it.
Yeah,
they're like, oh man, like the ministry we do, is this value? And they had questions
That's
like,
what I heard too.
Is this, their questions was like, is this valuable? Like, is the ministry that we're doing, is it worth it?
The attempt was to try to devalue people that serve here. That was where I was trying to go with that.
You're like, if I can devalue them by 4 p.m., I can get home and watch Last of the Mohicans.
Exactly. Love our media team, and they do a great job at all that. But
Was that no? That was the podcast
the
where
theological
you were crying,
discussion.
and I'm not.
Oh,
making,
stop
no, I'm
it.
not making a joke, but you were sharing a story of someone who literally could not attend,
Yeah.
and how it was so good to be with that was their words, to be with the church, and so that was if that was pre-COVID, that was even like pre-COVID reasons for why. I feel
Why
like
to keep it?
Yeah,
that's why I was
yeah.
wondering. Did I really definitively say I would not do it? Because I do remember that was my
Yeah.
that. I don't think I said this at the time, but that was and she's okay now. But that was my a story
Yeah.
about my mom being in the ICU and then being able to watch the church and yeah. So and how much that meant to her and how important that ministry was. So I think that's apocryphal. I think that this is apocryphal, and I am really upset and I am really mad also. And, you know, I feel devalued as we're talking about. No. So has my opinion on that changed? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, in terms of I've always thought it was valuable. I mean, I shared on that podcast the value of it. I think I was probably talking in theological terms, and part of the discussion was how that technology provides positives in terms of the reach. The negatives were, when we looked at the statistics in those first years, engagement in building fell precipitously, particularly from young families and other people that it was more convenient to not be in the building. We saw a trajectory of our attendance and growth with like the people showing up in the building on Sundays. And when we started that in 2015, that started to level off. And before you think, well, maybe the church just went into a plateau, the trajectory on our finances has actually since then increased even further. But the attendance finance trajectory of the first 5-6 years I was here was pretty lockstep with one another. They were both growing kind of up and to the right on the chart. And then the since then you had, and I think we're back on that upward trajectory even on the attendance side, but you started to see the finances take off even more, which indicates that there's more people invested here, more people rooted here, more people coming here. But you saw the in-building attendance actually went down for a couple of years and then began to shift and go back up, even while the finances stayed strong and stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger. So just looking at that statistically, it's very obvious when you look at those statistics that people weren't leaving the church. They were just showing up. And the way I estimated it from the data, all the data that I was analyzing through those years was, statistically, it looked like people who normally would be here 4 weeks out of 5 would come 3. Those who come 3 would come 2. So it wasn't like people just stopped attending, but overall, on average, people were coming once a month less than they normally would. And if they were once a month types, they were coming once every 6 weeks. It's just, that's what the data kind of showed. So that to me was a problem, you know? And so there's opportunities and there's obstacles. Maybe we can say it that way. And so I think as I reflected on that at the time, I would say, were the opportunities worth the obstacles? If I could put the genie back in the bottle, maybe I would. So how does COVID change that? Oh, well, I mean, it makes me thankful that we had that. It makes me thankful that we weren't rushing to try to figure it out, as a lot of churches were in those days, that we had worked the kinks out for 5 years on that thing here at East Vancouver before that hit. And so we were ready to optimize it and improve it. We obviously ran into a bunch of issues over that period of time and go, man, we are working with some outdated technology here. We are putting a lot more man hours in due to this kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't, and even the money we're raising now, that's not because anything in my own opinion or convictions has changed regarding that. That's just, that's in response to you guys here behind the cameras, as well as you, Ty, and others, like analyzing that whole area through the COVID period and saying, hey, we really need some help here to improve this technology that's 10, 20 years old in some cases for volunteers to be able to better serve. I mean, even changes we're able to make here on the podcast and other ministries and resources we create. So yeah, that's not, I don't feel like anything necessarily in my own mindset has changed during that. I've always seen the major value to it, but I still, dude, COVID more than anything too made me go, and I hope it did this for the entire church, to go like, not meeting together is not okay for Christians. Like this is like Psalm 84, man. We long to be in the house of the Lord together. And that's just a fundamental aspect of the Spirit of God being in us, is that the value of that, the essential nature to it. I mean, fill in the blank. Siri on my phone's like, what? I don't know what I said there. But yeah, so I don't know. Am I being inconsistent there? Someone rebuke me, and I will forgive you. No, I will repent, and then you can forgive me.
I think that and precision in language is important to us here in explaining why we do what we do from Scripture and kind of the discernment we're using with different things. And so I think two churches could both have a live stream, but for totally different reasons. And I think here, and I mean, I'm speaking mainly in regards to East Vancouver because you guys have it and we don't, but I've heard you guys talk a lot from the pulpit and in other communications, like explaining why you have live stream and that it's not a replacement for incarnational presence with the church body. That's fundamental to what the church is. It's ecclesia, the gathering, the assembly, and it's fundamental for Christian sanctification. We can't really practice all the one another's without being with one another. And so I think you guys have done a good job and will continue to do a good job of keeping that before people of like, hey, we don't have a live stream, so you can just never gather with the body.
Yeah.
It's for those unique circumstances where someone can't attend physically, or it gives visitors, non-believers, a chance to kind of tune in and not only hear the gospel, but kind of see what's going on behind the curtain. And because we forget that for people that haven't been in the church for a long time, it's a scary thing that you wonder. I think it's often how we feel as evangelicals when we drive by like a Mormon temple or Jehovah's Witness. We're like, what goes on in there? It's kind of weird. I think people think that with churches. They're like, what are they doing there? Because they have all sorts of perceptions and cultural ideas, and so live stream gives people kind of to see, oh, they sing and there's a Bible sermon and people seem normal and see how they're dressed and what kind of music, and so that's another benefit. So I think you guys will continue to do a good job of just keeping that before people of like, here's what it is and what it's not. And I'm sure if it ever really got to a point where people were literally viewing it as a replacement for attendance over a long period of time, you would have to address that as elders of maybe this isn't the right thing anymore, but it hasn't gotten to that point yet. So
yeah, and I think those were the conversations we're having a couple years ago.
Yeah.
Is this creating something in our people that's unhealthy?
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I remember conversations maybe with these microphones and maybe not, where it's like, oh man, like sometimes gathering with the church is difficult. Have we made it too easy to not do that?
Yeah.
Like, and not that we want to condemn like the young family who has had a baby up all night and like say, no, get your butt into the church building this morning. But we've definitely made it convenient for them to still like hear the sermon, be a part of it without being here. Right.
Yeah.
And so those are a lot of the conversations we were having. I think from my perspective on this question is I think that more than any of our thoughts have changed on it, the world has changed.
Yeah.
Like the world we live in has changed. And I'd almost equate it to like QR codes. Like QR codes have been around for many years. They're not new at all. However, when COVID hit, they became what you use to look at the menu at the restaurant that you're at. They became a lot more consistently used in culture, to where now, like if you see a link on a ad and there's no QR code, you're like, what in the world? Like, where did that go? And I think a lot of our world has gone so digital with kids doing school on Zoom, most people working on Zoom, that an organization not having a solid, viable, high quality video something is almost unheard of now, where it's like, kind of like you said, that you drive by the place and you want to know what happens inside there. Like pre-COVID, that was a luxury. Now it's kind of become a necessity, right, for an organization. And so, I don't know. I think that like the way that people who've maybe not been here, or people that are like fringe and coming into the fold here, the way that they interact with us will change based on COVID more than an ideology has changed or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I also do think we've seen, just more than any other season, like the benefit, right?
For
the
sure.
stories that we've heard, the people who are engaged, solid, showing up weekly members because of watching the live stream during the lockdown, or before they moved here, stuff like that, has been has been really, valuable for us to see.
Yeah, I'm the biggest defender of that the church needs to gather physically, but
The biggest?
In the whole
I'm
world?
the biggest in the whole world.
Capital T, capital B?
Yes.
Like you are you're the biggest proponent, or like you're the biggest?
I was.
You are swole
I
because
was-
you worked out today. Midday.
I was
swollen
I was-
swollen up.
prefacing a comment, and you guys totally
Arch.
hijacked that. I am a big proponent of the church gathering together, not the biggest.
Wow, have you just changed your stance on that?
Yes.
I'm
I
hearing a
changed
lot
my
of
mind.
people
I'm trying to
talking
put
out of
that
two sides of their
genie
mouths. Yeah.
back in the bottle.
Yep. Genie doesn't go back in the bottle.
What I was gonna say was the people who are very much anti-live stream and those sorts of things usually post their sermon audio or video on the internet after the fact. And so I think you'd have to ask why do you even do that? It's because we understand that the church, every single member cannot, or most likely cannot, gather every single week, but we still want the message of the gospel to go out. We still want the narrative and the vision we're casting from the pulpit as we preach the gospel to be heard. And so why not utilize technology, which is it's not an evil or good thing in and of itself. It's just a thing. Why not utilize it and redeem it for God's purposes? I think it's a great thing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, that brings to mind, and Max, let's put this in the show notes, but there was a podcast, I believe it's the 9 Marks podcast, but I might be wrong, between Mark Dever and Matt Chandler. So Mark is very much like the church needs to gather, one gathering. If it's more than one gathering, it's more than one church, all this stuff. And then Matt Chandler, of course, they had 7 campuses at the time of the Village Church, and they go back and forth kind of they share theology and doctrine, and their methodology is vastly different. It's a fascinating conversation.
It's very good.
And so we'll put the link to that in the show notes. And that, because it's a great conversation, not about live stream, but just about how the church interacts with multiple gatherings, stuff like that. It's really fun. So if this brought up,
There's one quote in that from Mark Dever that I just have never forgotten, where Matt says to him at one point, "What if you're wrong?" And then Dever just responds, "I'm not." It was yeah. Anyway, and the guy, he knows his stuff, but I just remember his confidence level in that is pretty significant.
Yeah.
He ecclesiologically, and that's kind of his. He's written a number of books on ecclesiology and 9 Marks, man. That's the ecclesiology tribe, but and I really respect them. But I always love.
He
that.
is
I'm
probably actually the biggest proponent of
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, right?
actually
not
be-
the largest.
No, he's the second biggest after Ben. Yep.
Mm.
So anyway,
Am I making you uncomfortable? Yeah, one thing about that podcast, though, is that was back before they had good technology.
Yeah.
And so the way they recorded it was Mark Dever had a microphone, and then Matt Chandler was on the phone, and they held a microphone up to the phone. And the audio on that podcast is hard to listen to. So I remember we were listening to it on a road trip, and it was in the van, and my kids were asleep in the back. And when Dever would talk, it would get really loud, and then when Chandler would talk, it'd get really quiet. So I'd have to turn it way up, and then I'd be
Yeah.
I just remember riding the volume button the whole time because my wife was like, "Come on, you're gonna wake the kids up." I was it's not me, it's Dever. But yeah, so maybe this brought up more questions. Feel free to send those in. Podcast@toBeTheChurch.com is the best way to do that. You can also do it on any social media platform @toBeTheChurch. We are on YouTube, and we would love it if you would subscribe, and so you can get those videos week in and week out.